Las Vegas, Nevada, November 21, 1980. The MGM Grand Hotel and Casino stood as a palace of luxury on the Strip, glittering lights, 26 stories high, more than 2,000 rooms, and a casino floor the size of a football field. For tourists, it was a dream destination, where fortunes could be made, where shows dazzled every night, and where every detail was designed to impress. But on this Friday morning, just after 7 o'clock, the glamour vanished. Guests were still asleep in their rooms, others were stirring awake, and hotel staff were beginning another workday. Within the hour, the MGM Grand would be transformed into a towering inferno. By the end of that day, 85 people would be dead, more than 700 injured, and Las Vegas would carry one of the darkest scars in its history. The tragedy began in one of the most unassuming corners of the MGM Grand, a small restaurant tucked away on the casino level, known as the Deli. It was closed at the time. Chairs were neatly arranged, tables cleaned, and the kitchen was quiet as it awaited its usual morning rush for breakfast. But hidden behind the walls was a danger no one could see. Faulty electrical wiring, running through a waitress service station, had been slowly deteriorating. Investigators later determined that a combination of electrical faults and poor installation set the stage for disaster. At around 7 a.m., that wiring failed. Sparks ignited nearby flammable materials, wood paneling, plastic trim, paper goods, and in seconds, the fire began to grow. At first, only a few people noticed. A construction worker passing by saw a flickering light against a wall. A kitchen employee reported flames near a service stand. Attempts were made to fight the fire with a hose and extinguisher, but the smoke and pressure forced them back almost immediately. And then came the moment that sealed the fate of the MGM Grand, when the fire broke free of the small restaurant and entered the casino. The casino's design, meant to impress with its vast open space, became its worst flaw. The flames found carpets, wallpaper, draperies, and plastics that ignited like kindling. The fire didn't creep, it exploded outward, rolling across the ceiling and racing faster than anyone could outrun. In just 6 minutes, the MGM's Grand Casino was transformed into a roaring inferno. The MGM Grand's casino floor was a masterpiece of spectacle. It stretched larger than a football field, lined with glittering slot machines, neon lights, and lavish decor meant to dazzle visitors the moment they walked in. But in a fire, that open design became a curse. When the flames broke out of the Deli, they surged into this vast casino space with terrifying speed. Firefighters who arrived within minutes described what they saw as a wall of fire, a fireball rolling across the ceiling, swallowing everything in its path. One veteran recalled it looked as though the entire room had ignited at once. The casino, with its thick carpets, padded walls, vinyl wallpaper, and plastic fixtures, provided perfect fuel. Smoke and flames spread in every direction. By the time the first engine crew entered, they had only seconds before being driven back. One firefighter later said the smoke dropped from the ceiling to just 4 feet above the floor in less than half a minute. What began as a fire in one closed restaurant now dominated the heart of the hotel. Guests inside the casino fled in panic, but thousands of others, still in their rooms above, had no idea that disaster was already rising toward them. As the fire roared through the casino, another danger began to spread, one even more deadly than the flames themselves. Thick, black smoke, laced with toxic gases from burning plastics and carpets, poured upward through the hotel. The MGM's heating and air conditioning system acted like a highway for poison, carrying smoke through ducts, elevator shafts, and service corridors. Within minutes, the upper floors of the 26-story hotel were filling with choking fumes. Guests who had not yet realized a fire was raging below suddenly found their hallways clouded with darkness. Some tried to make their way toward exits, only to collapse after just a few breaths. Others, trapped in their rooms, placed wet towels under their doors, hoping to hold back the invisible killer pressing in from the hall. Of the 85 lives lost that morning, nearly all were claimed by smoke inhalation, not burns. Doctors later explained that many victims never had a chance. The air they breathed was filled with carbon monoxide and cyanide, chemicals released as the building's furnishings melted and burned. Survivors recalled the disorienting terror. One guest described crawling on the floor, unable to see even the faint glow of the exit signs through the haze. For many guests, The greatest danger wasn't the flames below, but the hopeless struggle to escape from above. The MGM Grand was built to impress, but not to protect. Its stairwells, designed with security in mind, were locks between floors. Once a person entered, they often found themselves sealed inside, with no way to re-enter the hotel on another level. Some who tried to escape through these stairwells were trapped, overtaken by smoke before reaching the ground. Elevators, the natural choice for frightened guests, became deadly traps. When the power failed, several elevators stalled, filling with smoke and suffocating the passengers inside. For those who remained in their rooms, confusion set in. The hotel's fire alarm system never gave a full general warning. Many guests stayed put, unaware of the urgency, until smoke began creeping under their doors. With hallways impassable, desperate measures followed. Some broke windows with chairs or lamps, waving frantically at rescuers below. The MGM, a tower of comfort, had transformed into a giant trap, its very design preventing many from finding safety. In the end, it was not only fire, but architecture and planning that cost lives. When the first alarm was sounded at 7:17 a.m., fire crews from across Las Vegas rushed to the MGM Grand. The first engine arrived in less than 3 minutes, only to find the casino already engulfed, flames bursting through the entrance canopy, and thick smoke pouring out across the strip. More than 500 firefighters would ultimately be called to the scene. They faced an impossible task, a 26-story tower filled with thousands of people, many already trapped in their rooms. Crews stormed inside, crawling through smoke-filled corridors with hoses and axes, forcing their way into locked rooms. They carried unconscious guests to safety, some over their shoulders, others dragged along the floor. Outside, ladders were raised against the building, pulling people from shattered windows. Above, helicopters hovered dangerously close to the rooftop, buffeted by rising heat. Pilots balanced their machines on thin margins while rescuers loaded frightened guests aboard. Hundreds were lifted off the roof that day, one of the largest rooftop rescue operations in American history. The work was brutal. Firefighters were pushed back again and again by heat and smoke. Radios crackled with urgent calls for backup, for oxygen, for stretchers. When the flames were finally beaten back and the smoke cleared, the full measure of the disaster came into view. 85 lives had been lost. More than 700 others were injured, many suffering from burns or from inhaling toxic smoke. But the fire also left behind urgent questions. How could such a modern, world-class hotel fail so completely in protecting its guests? Investigators soon delivered a damning answer. The hotel had sprinklers, but only in select areas, like the showroom and a few restaurants. The casino and the deli, where the fire began, had none. Why? Because years earlier, the MGM Grand had been granted a special exemption from sprinkler requirements, an exemption that saved money but cost lives. Experts later concluded that if sprinklers had been installed throughout the casino, the fire could have been contained almost immediately. Dozens of lives, perhaps nearly all, might have been spared. The MGM Grand fire didn't just devastate a single hotel, it shook the entire city of Las Vegas. The world watched the news unfold, images of smoke billowing from the strip, helicopters airlifting guests, and firefighters carrying bodies from blackened hallways. For a city built on tourism, the message was clear. If visitors didn't feel safe, the lifeblood of Las Vegas was at risk. In the months after the fire, grief gave way to anger. Families of the victims, along with hundreds of survivors, filed lawsuits against the MGM Grand and its parent company. The claims were staggering, alleging negligence, poor safety planning, and a willful disregard for the lives of guests. By the end, settlements totaled over $100 million, equivalent to more than $350 million in today's money. It was one of the largest legal payouts of its time. The financial blow was devastating, but the damage to the MGM Grand's reputation was even greater. The glittering jewel of the Strip was now remembered as the site of tragedy. When the hotel reopened in 1981, its owners invested millions in rebuilding not just the property, but also public trust. Yet the true legacy of the MGM Grand fire was not in lawsuits or money. It was in the changes it forced upon an entire industry. Building codes were overhauled. Fire safety became a priority instead of an afterthought. Hotels around the world redesigned their evacuation plans, upgraded alarm systems, and installed sprinklers in every corner. Today, the MGM Grand still stands in Las Vegas, bigger and brighter than ever. But above the neon lights and luxury, the memory of November 21, 1980, remains. 85 lives were lost, but their tragedy reshaped the way hotels protect guests across the globe. The MGM Grand fire remains a stark reminder: safety is never optional. It is the invisible promise every building must keep, and one that was written in blood and smoke on that cold morning in 1980. The MGM Grand fire stands as one of the darkest chapters in Las Vegas history, and the second deadliest hotel fire in the history of the United States. It was a tragedy born not only of flames, but of decisions, corners cut, codes bent, and warnings overlooked. 85 lives were lost, and yet from that loss came lasting change. Hotels today are safer because of the lessons learned in those smoke-filled hallways. Every sprinkler system, every clearly marked exit, every practiced evacuation plan carries the legacy of those who never made it out. History is not just the story of what happened, it is the reminder of what must never happen again.